And hello, my name is Am Latour, and this is a new episode of the KashCast, a casual interview-focused podcast where I interview various creatives from different backgrounds. And with me, I have Ryan Smith, who is you would say you're an illustrator and webcomic artist, right?
Yep, you could just say cartoonist even, although currently I collaborate with other artists now to help me out with the comics that are created.
Okay. And in terms of so the two comics that I'm going to focus on are obviously Funny Farm and Storm Wolves, but are there any other comics that you make?
There are currently 4 ongoing comics, although
Wow.
they are in different states of hiatus at the moment, but behind the scenes I am working on some more of their material. One is called A Cursed Dragon, and that's more of a fantasy adventure series. And the other one's called Banished. It's a science fiction. It's hard to describe them. They do, much like Funny Farm and Storm Wars, they focus on humor, but their genres are just totally different. Like, one's a light-hearted fantasy. The other one is more of a space noir adventure. Maybe a little bit of a mystery, slight horror elements to it. You know, like cosmic horror.
Right. So first off, I'm just impressed you're able to manage all that. Like, so let me just ask, like, how are you able to manage like all those ideas like all at the same time?
You see, it's a burden. I have to get them done, and that's why I recruited the help of other talents, just to help me go through all of this material instead of focusing on one, waiting a very long time, and then I could finally focus on another. No, I'm too impatient. I feel like I've got to get it all done now while I can, because who knows what's going to happen? Like whether it be life problems, or maybe it might be just the internet itself changing, evolving in a way it's already hostile towards artists. It feels like.
Especially this week.
So it's like everything's in flux, and I feel like if I have the opportunity to pursue more than one, through sheer determination, I'll do it. I'll just gotta keep organized, and when you work with other talents, you have to maintain a schedule. It's almost like I myself, if I was doing by myself, I'd feel like, oh well, I'll just do this whenever I feel like. But if other people are depending on me to get the material to them, I think that's what keeps me going with all these projects in a timely manner. I just don't want to disappoint other people that are dedicating their time and energy to help me create something, and I don't want to waste their time.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Well, first off, this very show, honestly, I've been getting help from my partner Jay in terms of editing and some of the visual assets. So, and that's been a huge help. First off, but in general, I definitely understand where you're coming from. One of the video projects that I had done was with one of my friends, Bash Dash, a friend of the show, for a gaming tournament that happened, I think, 2 weeks ago now. And that, like, because it was something where I had to clear it up with not only him, but just a whole crew of other people, licensing and all that. That was a very involved project, and that was only a minute. So I definitely understand, the just the I don't know, mental or emotional obligation, just not wanting to let other people fall with you. You want to be at your best if something turns to a group project. So I completely understand and respect that. So transitioning to that, so I guess first off, for anyone in the audience who might not be familiar with your work, again, just focusing on your main two at the time, Funny Farm and Storm Wolves, how would you pitch them to someone who might not be familiar with your work?
Storm Wolves is easy. It's like, if you are a fan of action cartoons from the 1990s, that's what this is. It's like it's a love letter to that style of cartooning. It's almost, there's no toys and stuff associated with Stormwells, but basically, if it was back then, it would be one big action cartoon commercial. Basically, how they were back then. Uh, just fun, action, and short. Like I designed each issue to be like it was a 22-minute episode, but 30 pages.
Nice, nice.
Funny Farm is just funny animals and adventures that just go all over the place. Standalone 30-page stories. It's hard to describe that one because it's more of it takes inspiration from the funny animal comics that were like made before I was born. Stuff like
Right.
Disney comics and Looney Tune comics, and I don't want to say Archie and stuff like that, but really it is kind of that same vein of humor adventure. Maybe a little more chaotic and weird than those ones, but that's the kind of stuff I want to see. Just really funny out there stories with our characters just being stuck in the middle of a absurd predicament and how they're going to get out of it.
Yeah. Now, I remember when I was initially doing that TikTok for you in December, I noticed. So I noticed you have like the current run, but also some of your older comics under the label Funny Farm Classic. So I guess that means like you've had this idea for a pretty long time. So what made you like stick with it?
I think the inspiration was back when I was really young. I guess my first exposure to comics were comic strips that were found in newspapers and collected into books back then.
Right.
I believe my first one was like Garfield. Before I could read, I remember there was a Garfield book, and I'd just look at the pictures even and ask someone to read it for me. I think that because of that inspiration, that's what drove me when I was in like school still. I make up my own comic characters and do actual comic strips, and they were made daily, and they have Sunday colored comics special for them, and I make those too. And I guess for a very first Funny Farm, I was inspired and determined to make a daily comic. Maybe I had the wild dream that, oh yeah, I'll submit this to a newspaper syndicate and that's how I'll make a career perhaps. Maybe that's because I was just with that thought I could probably say that. Let's see here. What's the best words? I think that's just the motivation I wanted. I want to make a career of it, and that's as far as I knew at that time, that was the only way to make a career in cartooning was be a newspaper comic strip and do a daily comic.
What I mean is that having an aspiration, having that spark, especially when you're at a young age, I also completely relate to. Like, the entire reason why I'm in like my current field, even if I'm not the one drawing per se, is because a lot of cartoons have like struck me at such a young age, and always being like passionate about behind the scenes stuff, comic stuff. Like, yeah, obviously I feel like we're from different generations, but we do have some similar experiences. I remember, for me, Garfield was definitely a part of it, but for me, the Captain Underpants books, especially, like a lot of work by Dave Pilkey, like had me and a lot of other friends my age at the time like in a chokehold, and it definitely did encourage us to like try to make our own like fan comics and stuff like that, to be honest. And yeah, like something that like I've talked about, well, obviously in joking and in passing, at least like from my experience, I don't know about yours, but like growing up and perhaps not having like a like creative background or maybe creative influences, it gets hard to like keep that momentum up. And I guess like I wanted to ask you directly, like how have you been able to keep the momentum up like throughout, like being a child with ambition to make things into like being an adult that's making like like multiple comics all at once, and just like still having that like childlike spark of imagination. Hopefully that question makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I totally get it. And it's, yeah, the funny thing about comics is that, yeah, we are from a different generation, but comics are just one of those things that's always a mainstay to everyone, no matter if they're into comics or animation or any of the arts. And it's, you Captain Underpants and Dog Cop and stuff like that. I appreciate how important they are to people. And then Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield and other strips were for me. So yeah, just like it's like a timeless, universal exposure to these things. They're always consistent. It's like that's why it's important to have comics available to kids, I feel, because it inspires them to do almost anything, not specifically for comics, but it just helps inspire them to do whatever they want in the future. Back to your comment about what it is that keeps me going. I guess it's just, yeah, you just have a passion for some things, and my passion is making comics and stories. And I could probably do faster if I tried writing a book or something instead, or maybe making YouTube or TikTok videos. It's just that comics are what speak to me, and that's, I don't know if I could do anything else if I was given the option. It would be pretty much comics all the way. It's just got me in its grip. I just want to make comics, and if I can't draw on myself, and if I don't have time for that, I'm gonna get other people to help me out, and I'll do the writing and editing and lettering and everything else. Like most of the people I work with don't even have experience with comics. I show them everything. I sketch it out. I show them this is where the panels go, this is where the characters will go, and I'll do all the lettering, and I work around their art because I figure, like, there's comics out there and you read them, it's just like a barrage of words just on the page, and it's like you may as well be reading a book at that point. They don't realize that comics are an art form also. You can show so much.
Visual medium, yeah.
Yeah, with just a visualization of what the characters are thinking or feeling. You don't have to have the whole words explain everything too. And it's a complicated skill to master. And I'm not saying I mastered it. It's just you appreciate how the flow goes, how to keep it visually interesting, just from panel to panel layouts, how the characters are. And I help the artist by showing this is exactly how it should go. And they appreciate that. If you're working for Marvel and DC, the process, you write it, give it to someone else, and that's their responsibility. You do whatever else. And then, but the way we do it, it's like a collaboration, a back and forth to try to make the best page possible if we can. And they appreciate it. They told me how much that this is great learning experience, just how to make comics. Because if you've never made a comic, I can imagine why people would find it intimidating to make. Where do I start?
Yeah.
How do I write a comic? Do I just draw it and then write words on it? How do I put the characters doing where they're going to make sense, etc. So it's a monster. It's a beast to make a comic page. So I had a burp.
Oh.
So yeah, just I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Oh no, it does. It does. And it's definitely ironic that you mentioned not. Well, first off, I'll say that I think it's like really good. Not only do you have like original ideas that are engaging, people want to interact with, but through managing other people, you give artists like an environment to learn, to grow, while still, still being able to combine it for your ultimate vision for these comics. I definitely respect that. I also will say, my own experience as someone who is trying to, I definitely feel passionate about writing and YouTube, informational video essay based content. But I said the C word. Oh, I gotta get out of that. But really, at heart, I am creative and I do have original ideas. I recently have been, trying to get back to going to the library, and I actually checked out a couple books. One of them being, Scott McCloud's, whole compendium, and yeah, I will definitely say, just the idea of just okay, how do I actually like get started with this? It is intimidating from someone who like just basically knows like jack at this point. Like I always see like a lot of people. Well, first off, at least like in my realm, I I definitely see a lot of people doing like hourly comic day. I know friends of the show, including one of my previous guests, Andrew DeVito, wink wink, have their own like web comics and stuff like that. And from what I've glanced, there's also like a pretty big overlap between, um, you know, in terms of skills, like storyboard artists and people who make comics in terms of like knowing the angles and stuff like that. So it's why you know stuff that is more visually engaging instead of just word walls like we were mentioning before are not only like more like engaging to draw but better to read for the reader. um, I am just I'm just going on word walls today myself. But I guess like my main point is that um, I definitely like respect like a lot of work that's being done, and like I definitely know a lot about like how the sausage is made, for lack of a better expression. But it's getting back into, I guess, like, the frame of mind of like making something for oneself is my personal current hurdle, and maybe might be for any other beginners in the audience who are coming from the perspective of, oh, I need to know so much in order to even think about doing something. Um, to finally give it back to you, I wanted to ask if you had like any input, like any opinions on the idea of, oh, an artist needs to know XYZ before even thinking about making something, or are you more the field of an artist who just like go in, make the mistake, and you learn through those mistakes?
It's probably both, but you really do have to learn from your mistakes. That's the only way to progress. I feel like it's great to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know a lot of people are just scared to start something because, oh well, this turned out to be garbage and whatever. But nothing is perfect at first, and if ever really, it's
Mm-hmm.
just a learning experience constantly throughout your whole life. um I don't think I'd be where I am right now. Like the comics I made like 10 years ago, that's why they're like the old Funny Farm's hidden away, because I don't want to look at that compared to what I'm making now. But I appreciate that if I hadn't done those comics, I wouldn't have the comics I am making today. So even
Right.
though I don't want to look at them terribly, I have to appreciate that they're seeing them is it's like the result of what I am capable of doing today. And with that in mind, they do. I love them also. I guess it's you get what I'm saying. It's that you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
get to where you are without trial and error, and
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid. And maybe don't have to show them off either. Like the internet nowadays can be pretty hostile. Like they'll find something
Yeah.
certain people, individuals will find something you made and they make fun of it. And it's this day and
Yeah,
age, you
that,
kind
that
of
that does tie into like a question that I had later, but continue, please.
yeah. It's just that you gotta have a thick skin, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
You gotta know that whatever you put on the internet, it's there forever now, and
Yeah.
some people you just can't let it affect you, I guess.
Hmm. So I guess my question is, well, obviously we're from different generations, so to speak. I guess I wanted to ask, like, from your perspective, since you were obviously around for eras of the internet that were not only much less commercialized, but like just a different environment. I imagine for artists. So I guess from your perspective for drawing, for so many years, like how would you describe like being an artist like in your time versus these days? Are there any like challenges? Are there any things like good about like how things are these days compared to back then?
Well, everything I've done has been on the internet, and
Mm-hmm.
the internet has changed the environment of how you present material online. Before, I'd say it was the 2000s that was probably the best time to do comics online. That's when I started putting comics online. Was then, and like even the early 2010s was probably the best time. It's just that you can have a website and you can have ads and you can have a network of other artists on just your websites alone, and people would have forums to talk on. They'd have little spots under their pages where the people can make like just show fan interaction. That's probably the best word. Just localized fan interaction with no middleman involved, and people had a great time. And it's turned into this social network slide that's made it. It at first seemed fine, but nowadays corporations are buying all the sites and they're trying to monetize these sites,
Yep.
and they're just wrecking every social aspect that cartoonists and other creatives have embraced because they've had no choice. And it's a slow decline that it's it's almost ridiculous how bad things are getting. I don't want to become like a big dumping all sorts of that negative energies here. It's just all the AI talk, all of the talk about stealing your information and training machines to it's almost heartbreaking to have the current environment. That this is not a great
Yeah.
creative environment to be working in. So that's why it's so disappointing that the golden age of the internet, it sounds stupid because I was like 10 or 20 years ago at the most, where it was like this haven full of art and people embracing the art and interacting directly with your website and other people's websites. It was like amazing compared to what is nowadays. And I hope that whatever we're experiencing right now will come to a climax so we can just start fresh with something new. I wish that would happen. But I guess we just have to tough out this storm. The comics have, and other sources of media, they've been through this before. It's like time is like a big old circle. Like 100 years ago, they had the same problem. It feels like everything feels like the exact same thing all over again. Something will happen, and hopefully soon, where we'll just see at least a light at the end of the tunnel. For here, our movies won't be canceled for a tax break.
Yeah.
Our show won't be canceled after 2 seasons, and here our comics will be shared and distributed in a way that's fair to the creators, gets to the audience, and everyone's happy.
Yeah, definitely. And well, first off to the audience, just uh, just to explain where we're at, we're recording this on February 29th, and this is the week where Tumblr has officially stated that they're going to be incorporating AI. And you can imagine how frustrated I am because I feel like Tumblr, at least from my experience with it, um, I feel like that was like I couldn't have asked for like a better middle ground between um like websites from like the more web 1.0 blogging era and the more social web 2.0 like social aspect. Because yeah, you have an app, you can have like a little auto generated page if you want to, that's fine. But especially if you're like a desktop power user, a lot of people did host webcoms, some still do. You have the freedom to like code something completely custom via HTML or have your own domain. To me, it felt like the best of both worlds because like I don't think there's any other site outside of just like making your own that really gave you that freedom. And now that they're incorporating AI, we're all just scrambling like headless chickens trying to find a new place again.
Yeah, Tumblr actually was that weird internet cousin that was just existed, never changed. It was all reliable,
Yeah.
unprofitable for whoever bought it. I think it was Yahoo that originally bought it. And
Yeah, I
then
remember
it
that.
just sat there, minding its own business. And everyone that still remained enjoyed just that little slice of old internet there, unbothered by mega corporations. And,
Yeah,
and now, yeah, because of
definitely.
what happened now, it is
Yeah,
sad. Yes.
yeah. I'm definitely hoping we can get like a return to that. Like I myself and I know probably like a couple other people are either just like making personal websites or web comics or whatever on NeoCities. And as someone who is of my age, you can imagine my experiences coding HTML from scratch has been eventful. But you know, it's also rewarding. You know, I will definitely say that. And you know, I feel like just like having like one stop for everything instead of just having uh 12 different things for different types and like everything. It's definitely a burden. Like I remember again like saying this in a previous episode. But as someone who is way too much of a computer power user and I like to admit, the program Postyburb has been pretty good. Is that you know just something that can you know just like immediately like queue posts and like post um, art and like text posts across multiple websites. Not all of them, sadly, not Instagram or anything like that, but Coffee, Patreon, all that stuff. Um, I don't know. I value highly letting other people know about anything that would make like artists' lives a little bit easier. So there's your plug again, I guess. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely interesting to think about, and I'm definitely hoping that you know with movements like this, we can, even if it's not adopted by the mainstream, the like more artists, more creatives will end up, you know, taking some of their internet back away from you know corporatization.
Hmm. And it in other countries, I I know Webtoons and some other sites like that.
Yes, yes.
Like that's big business in some places. Like I
Yeah, I've
know.
seen. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just about to say that. Like, I've seen like webtoon advertisements like in my local subway and like the
Mhm.
local buses a couple times. Like, you know, a lot of people have said you know like people don't read webcomics anymore, but maybe they just don't call them webcomics. You know, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, no.
I just feel like it's interesting, and you know, if you want to comment later on how you feel like the webtoon branding might change people's relationships or the way they consume webcomics, no, feel free. But again, another topic. I'm sorry.
That's
Please let me continue. You can continue your point.
um, it's just it's portrayed so much differently in other countries. And I think it's South Korea. They even have webtoons and webcomics are so big that I
Hmm.
believe they even have theme parks dedicated to some of the characters that they have from
Oh
these
wow.
webcomics. Yeah, it's just it's celebrated so differently outside North America sometimes it feels like. And meanwhile comics are big business in it's like you mentioned um Captain Underpants and
Yeah.
other works like that. That's like the that's ridiculous how popular that comic stuff is. Like Scholastic sells so many of those kinds of books to young adults and younger
Yeah.
readers that it's not even mentioned anywhere in North America. It just feels like it's like this hidden secret that there's these comics are just an underground thing. No, it's like the it's what's holding comics up. You think in Marvel and DC or like just because they have all those movies doesn't mean their comic sales are doing good. They're probably I don't have numbers in front of me. I don't study these numbers, but I definitely know the young audiences that they're going for Scholastic and other
Yes.
publishers. They're not these big names. In other countries, it's like it's an open uh, it's just the public embraces it so differently, and it's just funny to me how, like, even in Europe they embrace comics and cartoons so, like, they have giant museums dedicated to all these works. They have so many books and their own movies made. Meanwhile, here it just feels like it should be treated differently. And if we're talking about webtoons and stuff like that, I don't work with webtoons. I just don't trust another corporation with my material. But you
Very
hear stuff.
understandable.
The people that do get the most popular comics on there, they're not compensated well as much as they should be. Like other cartoonists in Japan and South Korea, and the such. Oh, I can't really say too much about Japan either, though, because I know manga sales skyrocket. The artists still languish. But,
Yeah, like, like me personally, I've just like heard many tales of, the authors of, stuff like Yu Yu Hakusho, Hunter x Hunter, One Piece, just like having to push themselves to the brink and like, having health challenges and then, like having to go on hugely infamous hiatuses just to like keep back on track. And you know like I can imagine, like I feel like if you're a person that is a creative, like your relationship reading comics, reading manga, whatever, would be so different. I remember being in high school, uh, basically just like being impatient anytime there was like another unprecedented Steven Universe hiatus. Now down behind the scenes, it's like, yeah, like you want to take like a 2 year hiatus for Invincible, please, like rest. Um, and yeah, I feel like in regards to webtoon, which is an area that I'm myself less familiar with, I'll be honest. Um, I feel like from a reader perspective, I wonder if, well, making these things more accessible is good, and people reading more in general, I feel, is good. Um, but I guess I do wonder how, like, the branding of it and basically encompassing it into an app, like the contentification of webcomics, for lack of better expression. And, you know, I guess I just do take that seriously. I've been trying to get that word content out of my vernacular. Obviously, it does suck how it's just become an umbrella term for a lot of things that are creative, a lot of things that are entirely creative that aren't based on existing intellectual property. Um, and yeah, like we were earlier discussing, um, discussing earlier, I do feel like eventually we will reach a peak, in terms of just like the public just getting kind of sick of, you know, sludge, I guess. I remember there was like a joke in the critic just like, talking about like bad movies, bad movie remakes or whatever. If people were making jokes at in the 90s, the 2020s, I feel like we might actually hit a peak and people will just be sick and people will out their own volition just go out and find, new experiences, new art to absorb. So I do feel like creative media in general, I don't feel like it will die out, and I'm stubborn enough that I will make something sooner or later. Um, but it's definitely like a new frontier, and it's definitely gonna be interesting to say the least to see how the next couple of years or decades play out. I'm sorry. Hopefully, this isn't getting like too philosophical for our audience. Normally, we just make like a bunch of crude jokes, but I mean, we can do that here too, for the record. Like, I'm not complaining, but uh, but yeah. So to pivot more about some of your work in general. So again, like for audience members who might not be familiar with your work, at the moment with both Funny Farm and Storm Wolves? Like, what's currently happening in the story that you can tell us?
Let's see. Stormwolves, again, is easy to talk about because that actually does have a storyline, an ongoing story arc. Like, these characters are brand new to super heroics, I guess you can call it. So it's like they're learning as they go. It's like we talked about before. You can't get better if you don't learn from your mistakes. And
Right.
they're making them. And this enemy force that's just swooping into their city that they're trying to defend. They're not overwhelmed yet, but it's one of those things that they're going to have to embrace the support of their family and friends. Basically, they can't do it by themselves. They'll learn, and eventually they'll come to a point where that they're overwhelmed. They need the support of their group in order to, I don't want to say anything too spoilery, but to achieve their goals, basically, of what this evil force, what is their objective, and is it something that can be overcome because it's just so big. It's strange to talk about because I'm being vague on purpose. It's not straightforward good versus evil. There's a lot of grays in there they'll learn. And I'm specifically it's funny with Stormwolves because I really do not want to associate them with police at all. In fact, I've never mentioned police whatsoever because, well, ACAB really. It's more about helping people, victims, of like rescuing them from the situations that they're in, as opposed to, oh, we gotta fight crime and put them in jail. Really, I try to avoid that. It's more about keeping people safe, and these elements, basically, they're laser focused on the heroes because they're what's in the limelight, and they're the ones that are being popularized by media, and because of that, now they're become the victims of this evil presence. But really, it's like SWAT cats and Batman and gargoyles. It's about action and fun. That's the primary thing. I don't want to be too story driven, even though there is a continuation. Each adventure is a continuation where it last left off. But I just want to have fun and action. Just people enjoying the story without thinking too hard, I guess.
Oh yeah, and oh no, I'm sorry. No, please. I was just about to gush about the art style. I can put that on the back burner. Please, you continue your thoughts.
Well, the art style, I specifically wanted to go for Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's like when that cartoon was airing, criminally canceled way too soon.
Oh, absolutely.
That was like, this is the most amazing cartoon I've ever seen. This is everything I could want, and I was going for those vibes, that style when detailing up the Stormwolves when we were first starting. And in fact, I was specifically going through the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Twitter portfolios and specifically looking for artists. Well, this person would work, this person would work, and this person would definitely work. And it's funny how, like, before Elon, I don't even want to say his name. Before that billionaire bought Twitter, I had this list of artists just all saved up and thinking, oh wait, when I need, excuse me, burping again. When the time comes, I'll have all these artists available to me. I'll just casually go through them when I need to. As soon as that person who bought Twitter just created mayhem, like it was to the point where questioning if Twitter existed, I just went through that list, cold contacting people, asking, hey, do you want to work on this comic? Hey, do you want to work on this comic? And I've got a nice lineup of people who are actually willing to do this because they love the concept, they love the style, and they just love that sort of aesthetic of just loose, fun action. And that's how Stormwolves is what it is because the aesthetic of cartoons that I like and other people enjoy.
Oh my god. So first off, I can definitely respect that. Um, because basically just wanting to make something that just looks like things you already like, like I definitely respect that. I've had creative block for the past couple years, so sadly, like my own original idea, I don't have like visuals to show for it, but uh, Rise TMNT, Motor City, and maybe even like Jet Set Radio here or there, have definitely been like huge influences. So first off, like very good taste, and second, you know, like I think that's also what I really like about your art direction is because it so the influence is obvious but in a good way where it's like someone who likes your source material will also like your own work, but it's not a carbon copy. And I feel like, well, this could be like art in general, but there've always been just like a very minor like nitpick I've had with some style challenges and stuff like that I've seen. Thankfully, I don't really see this problem like these days at all, and I completely understand it's more of a beginner artist thing. But whenever people like draw like say a character and like shows completely different art style, it always feels like they're just like slapping their own design language on a pre-existing character without like understanding what actually makes the art style tick, and which I feel is like the whole appeal of art because it is like a good like art exercise. And yeah, like I just feel like not only like on the outside and the inside, Storm Wolves definitely gives the impression of being like a love letter without being a carbon copy or a clone or anything. So
from a cursory look at it, you'd say, oh yeah, this is like SWAT Cats, but with the serial number filed off, and they're just gonna fight crime, and that's the end of the story. And at its core, yes, it does look like that. But I had, with Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, very similar to Stormwolf's stories. Like they're starting out, they're not perfect ninjas or action heroes at all from the start of that show.
Yeah,
they're horrible at it. Their master's horrible at it. Everyone's having a horrible time as they're learning to go through it as an evil. In this case, it was the Foot Clan and whatnot.
mm-hmm.
They're a slow increment of like a. It's like a difficulty level just keeps progressing higher and higher, and then they have to evolve to meet the rise to the challenge. Blah blah blah. So yeah, that's the vibes I want. I want them to learn. I want them to be horrible. No, not even. They're not bad at the Stormwolves. They're just they're on the lowest rung of the hero ladder though right now, and what skills they have, and it'll progress. They have an ally that's going to be introduced in the next issue, who's a scientist who works with the strange element that they found called Scarmine Tech. That's my MacGuffin, basically, that every character wants to get more of this particular advanced technology that's a mystery to everyone. They'll encounter a scientist that's going to help them with their tech and increase their skills so that they can actually better combat the enemies that they have that are far more superior in power.
Speaking of Stormwolves, I think one thing that I do want to ask, not so much in a plot way, but like in terms of this project or any of your other projects, like what would be your future plans? Like, would you ever want to like expand or translate to a different medium, or are you more than comfortable in your current niche of
let's pretend
comics?
that Hollywood and animation isn't having a crisis at the moment, and everything was normal.
Yeah.
Back in the Adventure Time days where animation was having their golden age, their current golden age. Yes, I would. Now, I don't know. I know the bare minimum of making cartoons. I know it's a super complicated collaboration with so many artists and talents. But
Oh, absolutely.
if I was in a position where I was like, here is a pitch, and if I did not have to do anything about it, like I don't know how to show run, I don't know how to write an episode or anything, but if someone else wanted to take a look at the material I have, and if I was I don't know what the title is, but if I was there in the background just helping out, whether it be like a consultant or something like that, that would be the ideal thing. And I'd be like, you go ahead, and 4 years later, and there's a cartoon, I'd be like, yay, that's amazing. I think that's it's. I want to be part of the process of something in animation. I just don't really want to be involved with it. So, sure, if someone else wanted to make it, yes, I'd be more than happy to go through that. As long as it wasn't like, I could just totally picture they saying, yeah, let's make a Stormwolves cartoon, and it would be just the most cash-in, uninspired, like, now,
Water it
right
down
now,
for the sake of money, right?
I don't know, just some other person's vision, and it just turns into something that this is totally not what I was wanting.
Right.
I was gonna say I was gonna make another comparison to Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That's another show that I've been watching a little bit here and there.
Oh yeah, love
Something like that. I want creators. If someone else was to take Stormwolves, I would first of all, I'd insist, like, I want people of different cultures, different ethnicities. I don't want just another white guy's interpretation of a show. I want other people's ideas. That's, if I was going to make a cartoon, that would be my first primary goal. I'd want every different perspectives of life. And that's what made these cartoons good cartoons nowadays, whether it be Rise of Teenage Ninja Turtles, whether it be Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, anything sort. What makes them great is they have a team of people writing, creating these that just show a different perspective, and that's what I love about them. I just can't emphasize enough. Hire people of color, hire different people of the spectrum, like the LGBTQ spectrum. Everybody, just get them involved. I want to them to share their experiences in stuff that I would make.
So I guess to explain, like, I've had an original idea, and I guess I could, to give it some sort of name, it would tentatively be titled Fragments, and I've been trying to chip away at it. And one of the things that kind of got me nervous, even even just like making like the characters and the dynamic that I would wanted, is, obviously, I'm black and, non-binary and like a bunch of other adjectives. But I think the challenge is always, writing what you don't know, and that, like, I want, like, to have, an urban world that reflects where I am, New York, where there is like a lot of people of like various varieties. And it's weird because it's like, obviously there are going to be, stories, told by people as individuals, that are firmly rooted in their life experiences, even if it's not a one-to-one like autobiographical like story or something. That cultural perspective, that individual perspective is like a key component. And while I greatly respect that, I don't feel like that would be me. Like my pitch for Fragments, as it's tentatively called, is a group of free black characters. One a child and two of them are young adults. Just trying to survive in a newly taken over futuristic city that is being run by a maniacal tech bro CEO. the thing is, the main character Ava is someone like an android. I don't have like an I don't have like a snappy word or whatever. So just for the sake of an android that has no memory of her past life when she was a human. So there's definitely going to be themes of just trying to define who who you are. You know, just trying to get used to like new world, new social rules. You know, if I can if I can like still have like the outer shell of like a hot-blooded like action show or comic or whatever, but on the inside, you know, have themes that are promoting, you know, being in touch with oneself physically, mentally, and emotionally, you know, touching on ideas of gentrification, for instance, having characters of multiple backgrounds. You know, if I could make one thing that were me, that would be it. And I feel like that ideas have a lot of potential and could get into a lot of like media forms. The issue is, and obviously you're much better at working with people than me, but through my own experiences in the academic system, I've kind of had the idea of if I don't do all this on my own, it's not going to get done. I can work well with others, and I'll do my best with others. But if I'm managing the project, people don't tend to listen. So that's why I'm trying to. That's why trying to take baby steps, and I'm currently trying to accept help from others with my gracious partner probably editing this episode as we speak. Uh, and yeah, like I don't know. It's why I greatly respect you and the fact that you have like so many ideas and you still have that passion in you. I've had like various life events that have kind of put that flame out, but the spark's still there because, frankly, I'm too stubborn to give up. I don't have like anything else I'm doing, so I might as well just try my best to make this work. You know what I
People,
mean?
I've seen this more often than not. People say spite is the best drive to get something done. And in my case, sometimes, yeah, it is spite against whomever is saying, no, you can't do this, or any events going on that discourages making something creative and fun. Spite is a powerful influencer when it comes to creating material, whether it be comics or anything else. And you know, yeah, I'm just trying to think of the proper words to describe this other than just spite, but it don't disregard the power of spite, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I will definitely agree. I mean, yeah, I will admit, while my wide-eyed dream was always to work in animation since I was a kid, I will admit there was a little bit of spite in there just to prove to the people who didn't think I could get to this point that I got to this point. Granted, it's not the primary motivator. I think that's where, you know, it can be dangerous. Spite shouldn't be a primary thing, but it should be like a spice.
Yeah. That's
Honestly,
more
like
accurate way of describing. Like I wasn't trying to sell spite as like the sole factor, but it just it is.
yeah,
You can't deny that sometimes that's a little bit behind the scenes. That's what's going on too. Just show them I can so do this, and
yeah, and you end up being your own hype man or hype person. So you know when you put yourself out there like that, um, you know you end up I don't know like all that pressure you can get a diamond out of it sometimes. So you know, um, but yeah, like honestly, oh my god, we've had a lot of good conversations. I do apologize if we end up like talking more generally instead of topics that more focus on your own work. But I'm quite pleased with the subjects that we covered. Honestly,
well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I don't mind discussing your works as well. It's very interesting to hear as well. Back in your question earlier about what plans like for comics, I didn't touch on Funny Farm yet. Did you want me just to quickly circle back on that?
Yeah, sure, that would be nice.
So, for Stormwolves, yeah, it's an ongoing story. Funny Farm has the most bare bones story arc possible. My plans for that is like a cartoon season, typical, like 13 episodes. I like to do 13 issues of Funny Farm, and they would mostly have their season finale, quote unquote, and we'll see what happens after that. It's like each issue is a standalone story, and there's little nuggets of an ongoing mystery. The mystery is what is with this house that they're living in. It seems unusual and weird. They're uncovering technology from like 1980s here and there, and weird passageways and ducts and stuff that doesn't work in the house. And the ongoing mystery is that the people who own the house, Ront and Mune, they inherited it from Mune's grandfather, who mysteriously passed away. The conflict will be that Mune isn't the only one who inherited the grandfather's possessions. He has a cousin named Lynette, and she's going to be like the season 1 antagonist, so to speak. And her involvement, which is coming up soon, I guess, maybe a couple issues of Funny Farm, where she's going to contest who actually owns the property. And if you ever read Funny Farm, whoever's listening, if you look at it's like insane. Like weird things just happen just for the fun of it, and they deal with it. And it's not going to be a simple case of, oh, I got my lawyers here and we're going to take over the property. No, it's going to be absolutely bonkers. So they're going to be engaged in some kind of contest of wits and skill in the most ridiculous, over-the-top way in order to see who actually is going to take ownership of this property that they found, and then discover why things are happening the way. I don't want to spoil it because there's going to be a throwback to old Funny Farm characters. They're going to be introduced into this particular storyline.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be bonkers. It's going to be over-the-top mayhem silliness. So right now, currently there's a game show going on that they're part of called Pyramid of Prizes, and even that's just silly nonsense. What's going to happen after this is just beyond. I want to talk about it, but I can't talk about it because it's such a big event that's going to be culminating. I'm excited to eventually get to it, but whoever is reading Funny Farm right now, just know that things are going to exponentially explode. And when it comes to it's very, I just want to say it, but I can't say it. But just stay tuned, keep reading. You're going to see some exciting stuff down the road with that.
Well, I mean, you sold me, honestly. Yeah, I'll definitely catch up, and one of these days, probably on Blue Sky, I'll definitely message you, so you can like hear my thoughts. I obviously know how valuable artists giving each other feedback is, especially these days, especially on a new site where algorithm is more powered of like who you follow instead of just like an AI generating it. But I'm rambling, just and of course, once I have something more substantial on my end, I definitely would love like your feedback as well. Okay, so with that, I'm officially going to start closing out this episode. Ryan, you've been a wonderful guest. Where can our listeners keep up with you?
Currently, if you want to visit the websites, which I always recommend, Stormwolves is located at www.stormwolvescomic.com. Funny Farm can be found at www.funnyfarmcomics.com. And then each website has links to all my other material as well. So if you scroll down the page, you'll find not only the links to the comics I mentioned, but other comics as well. And Blue Sky, Ryan Comics, is probably the best social media place to find me currently as of this airing. And then yeah, that's I'd appreciate any new readers and existing readers just to keep on going and know that big things are in the works. They're behind the scenes, but then they're coming.
Perfect. Thank you very much. As for me, the easiest way to keep track of where I will be online is my card, a2adam.carrd.co. It is just a little, admittedly flashy link tree that should have everything, including the KashCast. I am currently trying to make a NeoCities website that will just have everything. That's currently under construction, but if you do want to check it out, that will be at a2adam.neocities.org. Eventually, I will put a page for the podcast there. If you'd like to support me, you can donate $2 or $5 at my new Patreon, patreon.com/a2adam. I don't have much there. This is literally something I made as of the week of this recording, but you will get updates on any project that I'm working on. You will know upcoming guests early, and you will also be able to ask questions early, as well as just get early drops, names and credits, typical stuff. For anyone who does support, it would be greatly appreciated but not required. And feel free to give any sort of feedback as to what you would want from this. Other than that, it has been great talking with you. So I will officially close this off from there. I will officially close off another episode of the KashCast. I have been Adam.
And I've been Ryan Smith.
And we will both catch you next time. Remember to stay safe, take care, wear a mask, and remember, love and peace always. Take care.